boat can leave now. Tell the crew.
We've talked about Lucio Fulci before with his more obscure erotic mini masterpiece, The Devil's Honey, but today we're going for something a tad more mainstream. That film is, of course, 1979's Zombie, aka Zombie 2, aka Island of the Flesh Eaters, aka Island of the Living Dead. Italians. Zombie is probably best known as the unofficial Italian sequel to Dawn of the Dead, which was billed simply as Zombie in Italy, hence Zombie 2 is the film's most famous title. However, it was not originally produced as a sequel and as such has very little in common with Dawn of the Dead. Instead of the social commentary and urban setting of Romero's classic, Zombie spends the majority of its time on a small Caribbean island known as Motul. It is on this island where journalist Peter West, played by Ian McCulloch, and Ann Bowles, played by Tisa Farrow, venture to find Anne's father, only to come into contact with a shitload of zombies. What's most striking about Zombie is it's a legitimately beautiful film. Like, it's got amazing, often somewhat illegal location photography that would look prim and proper in any major Hollywood release. And there's grotesque special effects galore that will make even the most jaded modern moviegoers squirm. Fulci's love of Hitchcockian thrills also comes into play in a couple of sequences, including the greatest ocular trauma ever presented on the big screen. Probably guess what I'm talking about. This is a 4K restoration from Blue Underground, which they've made a few waves recently. Maniac is another Blu-ray that they came out with. It's a very similar packaging to Zombie that also features a 4K restoration, obviously scaled down to 1080p because it's a Blu-ray, it's not a 4K Blu-ray. I don't see that as a problem. I personally, I think I've mentioned this before on the show, I don't really care about 4K unless it's like something really dope. Like if you were to present, say, I don't know, Bad Boys 2 on 4K. Oh god, I'm ranting again. Point is, this is a beautiful restoration, and I highly, highly recommend it right out of the gate, just for being that goddamn good looking. It is a massive upgrade from previous releases. Alright, so let's talk about the cover design and the packaging. So first off, there were 3 limited edition lenticular covers you could choose from. One was, of course, the eye trauma scene, which you can tell is pretty dope. That lenticular cover works very nicely. And then you also had a Brooklyn Bridge variant and the classic Zombie variant. This is my favorite scene in the movie, so that's why I went for it. But you know, whatever, if it's still available, get your version today. There's still plenty left over at the time of recording this, so definitely look for it. It is a limited edition. At some point, it will no longer be available. I highly suggest going to Diabolic DVD, grabbing a copy. I believe they also still have the 3 cover deal available where you get the actual disc set and then 3 covers. Highly recommended if you're into that sort of thing. I personally don't really care. I just went for the one that I like the most. But if that's your thing, fucking buy them, man. So we open her up. It slides off very nicely, unlike Severin discs. Sorry, that's a... I shouldn't be so mean-spirited. Severin's great. So we got second version, or the non-lenticular version of the cover, whichever one you choose. And then you open the sucker up, and you get the Zombie classic poster variant, which, you know, if that's what you want, then there you go. I always appreciate when the distributors put together these alternate covers that you can just, so you can have the original artwork. That's pretty dope AF, as the kids say. If we look inside, we've got, let's see, this little advertisement for the comic book that's coming from Ebon Press. I think it's called Ebon Press. And then on the reverse side, the ad for the Maniac comic. I'm very curious about these. I don't know if I'll buy them, but if I do, I'll definitely talk about them on this here program. And then we have a lovely little insert here, a little booklet. There is no explicit sex in this picture. However, there are scenes of violence which may be considered shocking. No one under 17 will be admitted. That's cute. Anyway, inside of this we have an essay by Stephen Thrower. Doop-a-doop-a-doop. An essay by Stephen Thrower which contains some delightful images from the history of Zombie, including its Fangoria cover. It's a good little essay about the film and about the reaction from critics at the time and all that jazz. which this is my favorite little trivia bit. The writer accuses Fulci of imitating Romero and yet acknowledges that the film draws upon roots established before Romero's film and also boasts at least one major scene that is unique and, quote, perfectly executed, which is just another way of saying that critics are assholes. Disc-wise, we have the motion picture soundtrack, which is dope AF. I keep saying that because I'm technically a millennial, and I think that makes me technically still young, so dope AF. And then we have the Blu-ray itself with the feature film plus a few extras. And then underneath that, which I don't like this way of doing things, but underneath that, we have another Blu-ray with additional extras. Some of these are presented in 480 because they are ported over. There's actually not a whole lot of new extras on here. A lot of them come from previous releases, but we'll get into that in a second. So you'll notice a disc there. It kind of is like scooped under. It's layered under the other disc. I find that kind of annoying personally because I feel weird because if I put the first disc back in, I then can't actually get the other disc in there without then taking out the first disc, then like layering it under and awkwardly putting this back. I find that kind of dumb personally, but whatever. The discs have the classic Zombie and the Brooklyn Bridge art, plus this is just kind of a blank soundtrack CD. I like that they're all different looking. That's very helpful to me. I'm an idiot. So, oh shit, damn it. That was really fun and dramatic, me closing it that way, but then I left it. Okay. So, overall, great packaging. I have no real complaints beyond that second disc being like shoved in there. I think that's a weird design, and I've only seen it with Blue Underground. That's the only time I've actually seen that done. I'm sure it's done with other releases, maybe, I don't know. It's a weird one. It's definitely a way of doing it. Moving on to the extras. Disc 1 contains the film itself, as well as a commentary from Troy Howarth. He is, of course, the author of Splintered Visions, Lucio Fulci and his films, and the other from star Ian McCulloch, interviewed by Diabolic magazine editor Jason J. Slater. The one featurette on this disc is When the Earth Spits Out the Dead, an interview with Stephen Thrower, who of course wrote Beyond Terror, the films of Lucio Fulci. Thrower is always a reliable pick for these, and kinda had to be on this disc by default. This sucker is a whopping 33 minutes and sets a high bar for the rest of the features, unless a fairly dry British man discussing zombies isn't your thing, in which case you and I are into some very different shit. Guillermo del Toro does have an introduction to the film, which I think is boasted pretty heavily. Yeah, it's not heavily boasted, but in bold it says Guillermo del Toro intro. It's a very short piece. It amounts to nothing. It's pretty much just, hey guys, check out this fucking awesome, I don't know why that's my Guillermo del Toro accent, fucking awesome movie. It's the best zombie movie out there, yada yada. I didn't even write down the time, it was so negligible. It's a very short intro. But we'll get more into the maestro in a bit. We also get trailers, radio spots, TV spots, and a stills gallery, which in this case is a fairly fast-moving 9-minute video. They're all what you'd expect. If that's your thing, you'll like them. If it's not your thing, you won't care. Those commentaries that I mentioned, I didn't watch the movie with them entirely, but I did watch about 30-odd minutes of the film, each with the commentary, so 30 minutes of each commentary. They were really good. That's really all I got to say for you. They are very informative. There was some information that I hadn't known before. There was some that I was well versed in. They were very, very good commentaries, good-natured fun with everyone involved. Everyone loves the movie and shows that love. It's exactly what I want from a commentary track, times 2. And the Troy Howarth commentary track is brand new, so you get one new commentary in here, plus the interview with Stephen Thrower, When the Earth Spits Out the Dead, is also new to this release. Disc 2, meanwhile, is all ported over features. There's nothing new in Disc 2, but it's a nice compendium of what has come before. There's a whole bunch of featurettes, starting off with Zombie Wasteland, a 22-minute documentary-style video centered around the Zombie 30th anniversary celebration at Cinema Wasteland, which is weird because it very much is a horror convention in a little hotel somewhere in the US. Like it's strange seeing such an important film celebrated at such a tiny venue. It's like a little room for the main presentation. And there's nothing wrong with that. The horror community is a very tightly knit group, and these conventions tend to be pretty small. I think that it gives you a realistic look at what those are like if you've never been before. There's also Flesh Eaters on Film, which is an interview with co-producer Fabrizio De Angelis, or however the fuck you say his name, who gives us an idea of what it was like to physically make Zombie, and of course what it was like to work with Fulci, who seems like a peach. Everyone seems a little uncertain as to how Zombie came to be, and many of the stories about production don't quite match up, but that shouldn't be surprising to any fan of Italian exploitation. There's a lot of exaggeration and hyperbole in these interviews, but at the end of the day, you get a pretty good idea of what went down. Dead Time Stories interviews co-writers Elisa Briganti and Dardano Sacchetti. World of the Dead interviews cinematographer Sergio Salvati and production and costume designer Walter Patriarca? Fuck, I'm not good at these names, guys. Zombie Italiano interviews special makeup effects artist Gianetto De Rossi and Maurizio Trani, and special effects artist Gino De Rossi. Notes on a Headstone interviews composer Fabio Frizzi. All in the Family interviews Antonella Fulci. Finally, to round things out, we get a fat Mexican talking about zombies. That's right, Guillermo del Toro, the one and only, actually gets an interview segment. For 9 minutes, he tells us why he loves Zombie in a way that is distinctly Del Toro. There are moments where I think he's probably overthinking things, like the suggestion that the fat zombie at the beginning is fat because he ate everyone, like Dracula did on the Demeter. It's a cool idea, though, as are most of Del Toro's ideas, and I could have listened to Del Toro talk on the subject for 2 straight hours, but 9 minutes will do. All of these interviews range within a fairly consistent level. Some of them are not terribly revealing, others are, but at the end of the day, it's a bunch of interviews ported over from previous releases. If you're a big zombie fan, you've probably already seen them. I'm not going to go into detail with them, but they're there, and they are mostly very good. I will probably be revisiting most of them at some point. As it stood for me, it was an afternoon of just non-stop zombie goodness, watching them one after the other, and it made for a very fun time. So if you weren't already sold on the disc, I highly recommend it for the special features as well. Obviously, there wasn't as much done as there could have been. I would have really liked to see a special feature about, say, what it took to restore the film. I'm always interested in that process, and it seems like none of these discs ever actually bring it up, which is sad. But otherwise, I mean, it's great work. The film, let's see, has English and Italian audio, there's French subtitles, Spanish subtitles, Portuguese, Dutch, Italian, I don't know what that is, Netherlands, Svenska, Russian, Korean, Japanese, every subtitle is available. The 7.1 DTS soundtrack is dope as all hell. It sounds great, the soundtrack is great, everything's great, man. I wish that these companies weren't as good at making Blu-rays, just so they would give me something to complain about, because as it stands, I have no real legitimate complaints about this restoration. It would be cool, I guess, to have a 4K version, but I'm not sure it would actually change anything. I don't think you could actually tell the difference. But I'm curious to see if that's the case. I would love to know. Man, just watch the movie. Buy this film. It's quintessential for any collection. If you already own Zombie on DVD, don't worry. It looks better without it losing any of that dirty charm. The only problem I had was they did change the opening title to just Zombie. It's white on black, and it seems like they do this for most releases, and I don't know why they couldn't have used one of the OG title cards instead of creating a new one. It briefly took me out, but it's such a brief thing that who really cares? So the titles are different. Whatever. It's not like Walter Hill with the Warriors DVD from back in the day, where it's just completely changed. They changed the titles a little bit. It's nothing extraordinary. It's just straightforward white on black text. Whatever. It's fine. So yeah, check out Zombie on Blu-ray from Blue Underground. It is a classic of horror Blu-ray releases. I'm Michael Keane. I don't really use Twitter as much as I used to, but go ahead and follow me on Twitter. I talk about horror and movies and horror movies. Like and subscribe.